a mysterious water leak. So, yeah, feel free. We just broadcast a little while ago going over some of the details of a potential leak that could be, meaning not knowing if it was going to be a leak or not. We had no idea if it was going to be. And it turns out that it was three separate problems that she was having in the house. So the downside, hey, welcome. Good to see you again. Good to see you again. Yeah, this is my second live this morning. So, oh, and my favorite restaurants, Chick-fil-A, Cookout, Zaxby's. I'm a sucker for eating out. I hate to say that, but lunch, I get hungry. It's 11 o'clock. It's time to eat. It's because I'm up at 6, so I always get hungry. So, always get hungry. Yeah, so welcome. So we were talking earlier about my earlier claim, but this one, I wanted to see if there would be other people to join me back again from the live because they were watching me before. And I told them I'd be gone for about a half an hour, and now I'm back. And would love to continue the conversation that I had before about this claim. But anyway, so the downside, and I'll talk about something that's related to it that you're going to run into as an adjuster on a pretty regular basis, and that is the quality of building that is going on in the United States. And it's not just North Carolina, I'm sure it's everywhere. Is that production building has really taken off in the last 10 years or so. Production meaning, I call them, instead of track houses, I call them trash houses. Okay, so back in the day when I was building, we had some track home builders. That's what they were called, track home builders. And that's because they would just build these houses in these monster subdivisions, all in a line, cookie cutter, stamp them out, they're all identical, and they're all built really cheesy, with the cheesiest materials that they could put in, the cheapest materials, the cheapest labor, and they were nothing but headaches. 5 years down the road, they were all falling apart. Everybody turned them into rental properties, and then there began the slums of the area. So that's unfortunately still going on, and they have not improved the quality of build. In fact, all they've done is raise the prices. So back then, I was at a house right now. This house back 10, 15 years ago was $168,000. This house now is $350,000. And it is exactly the same build as it was back then. They have not increased the quality. They have not increased, the skill level of the laborers that are putting these houses together, because everything is just slapped together and filled with caulk, and, shingles are crooked. I mean, every single thing on these things looks like they hired a guy that had never done the trade before, and he did it because it was, the most money he's ever made. Meanwhile, it was absolute trash money for a skilled person who actually had been doing this for a living. So these are how these houses get built. When I was first starting as a trim carpenter, brand new in the industry, I was looking for work. I went to the track houses to try and find work. And I hate to admit it, but back then they were paying about 30 cents a square foot for me to trim that house. 30 cents. Okay, so if you got a 3,000 square foot house, which back then they weren't, but a 2,000 square foot house, you'd make $600 to trim that entire house. Hang doors, put baseboard, put casing, occasionally one room of crown, and that was it. And there wasn't a whole lot of trim in them. A lot of times the windows were just a windowsill with an apron. And the baseboard was 3 1/4, maybe 15 doors, and I could trim those in a day by myself. And so back then, though, it was really crummy pay. The average trim price back then was probably 85 cents a square foot to $1. Actually, not quite $1, but 85 cents was production build. Was actually not production build, but decent trim quality. And production build was paying 35 cents. So a dramatic drop. But here's the difference. They could give me like 10 houses a week if I wanted it to trim, and sometimes more. And so for a crew that would come in with 10 guys, they could trim that house in 3 hours and then do 2 more houses beyond that and easily make money doing that kind of trim. But again, comes back to what kind of quality are you're going to receive when people are trimming houses, 3 of them in one day. And the answer is trash. It was just really done poorly and sloppy. And it was funny because I remember one of the painters coming to me afterwards, and I went to look at some of these guys' houses because I was doing a good job. I was making all my seams tight and everything was looking, I took pride in my work. And I went into one of this guy's house, and I noticed that the baseboard had like sometimes 1/8-inch gaps in the seams, if not a quarter, sometimes 1/4 inch. And I was flabbergasted by it because I was like, how do you fill this? Like, as a painter, I was talking to him and I was like, well, how do you fill these gaps? And he said to me, oh, you just lick your finger and put it down. And I was like, really? And he goes, yes. He said, that's how sometimes you deal with the really bad trim guys and sometimes you get good guys like you. And he says, we love trimming you. He says, we don't use very much caulking in our houses at all with you. He said, but unfortunately, a guy, one of these other guys, he said, we use a lot of caulking in these houses in order to get them get them looking good. So it's kind of sad that the quality of building has so many different variables, meaning you can have good trim, bad trim, terrible trim, and that's just fine in the industry. And I hate to say it, but it's across the board with all trades. You got good plumbers, bad plumbers, and terrible plumbers, and good framers, bad framers, and terrible framers. And that's just part of the world we live in, especially when you're talking about builders and contractors that are willing to hire these people because they're paying so little for the trade. And that's really the problem, guys, is the quality of and the payment system. I got to stop and get gas. But the reason why is because the quality that they're paying, or the money they're paying, they're getting the quality they're paying. So they choose these guys because, number one, they want to make a profit, and number two, they want to make as much as they can as far as profit. So they're willing to underpay people for their trade in order to benefit themselves in the long run when they're profit. So it's kind of a sad world we live in, but it's still done even in the custom world. The thing that I noticed, so when I was a carpenter, I moved from production build eventually into custom building, so custom trim. So I was working in the really, really nice places, doing circular staircases and doing all sorts of really, really nice trim. And yes, they were paying more. Sometimes I would get $2 a square foot or whatever for trim, $2.50 for some custom stuff, paying really well. That was different though. This guy, the builder, is making maybe $100,000 profit on building that house. And so he doesn't mind paying for the quality work because he's making a really hefty profit himself. And I don't have a problem with that. I figure, hey, if somebody wants some really high quality work, they're going to pay high quality prices. And I get it. So the downside is that that's not the norm for 75 to 80% of the people in the world. they are, stretching their budget in order to even just get in the house that they're buying. They're trying to buy as much house as they can for the price. And sometimes, that affects the quality. So what they're doing, sorry for the noise, got a truck coming by. The downside is that the builder knows this, and so he's going to be creating a house as cheap as he can create it for the most square footage in order to help those people find a house that they want for the price that they want. It's a catch-22. Now, you're thinking, why? Yeah, Bob the Builder, you're right. King, you're so right. So why do I bring this up? I bring this up because the majority of houses on the market today are where we're spending most of our time in claims. Meaning, when I go to see a house, I'm normally going to production home building houses. I'm normally going to the medium price range houses, if not to the low end pricing. And the reason I'm doing that is because that's where most of your problems are happening. Most of your building defects, I call it, or sloppy building, meaning like the first claim I did this morning, the plumbing was just put in the wrong spot. And so the plumber didn't care. He didn't have any desire to do quality work. And so, we had a nail that went through one of the plumbing lines. And that happens all the time, guys. So, type of adjusting I do, I'm a property adjuster, and I do daily claims right now, but I'm also a catastrophe adjuster that runs out and does big cat events. I'm an all lines adjuster, so I can do anything. But right now, my specialty is home building because of the fact that I was a home builder and a remodeler for 18 years before doing this. It makes my adjusting easy when I'm talking about construction. I feel safe in a house that can literally punch through. Yeah, it's crazy as a non-American. Yeah, the thing you're right about is people talk about how you could break into these houses with a Sawzall because you could just pull off the siding and cut through the blackboard and walk into a house. Because they don't even put plywood on the houses anymore. So yeah, you're right. You could break in. Who needs a door? You just need a cordless Sawzall and you're in any house. And it's sad, but it's true. It's just the building industry has given people what they want. Okay? Now, trust me on this because this is true. When I was a home builder and I was building very high quality homes, I was remodeling houses in very good areas. My houses were $100,000 more than the average person's house. And that's because I was gluing and screwing everything. I was using the best trim, the highest quality products, things that had been, I found in Home Builder magazine that were the best products. I mean, all my, low voltage lighting. I mean, all sorts of really high-end stuff, guys. And the problem is that I couldn't convince the average home buyer that the quality was important in the build. Okay, so here you are, is you have somebody coming up, they're looking to buy a house, and all they do is take the square footage of my house, multiply it or divide it by the price of the house that I was asking, and then come up with this square footage price. And to them, all that mattered was the square foot price. And then the second part that only mattered to them was how much square footage they were getting. So if my house was 2,000 square foot, but $350,000 or $400,000, they were saying it was a ripoff because it was more than $100 a square foot. And back then, that was kind of like the production was $75, and decent home building was $100 square foot or $125. Now, that same house that I could build today is $300 a square foot. I can't believe it. It's just absolutely ridiculous what people are willing to pay for houses. Now, so the problem is that when I was trying to sell my product, I would try to tell them, hey, it's high quality, it's going to be here for 20 years, you're not going to have any foundation issues, I'm giving you a 5-year warranty on your house, whereas everybody was giving 1-year warranties back then. I'll give you a lifetime on structural. I mean, I was giving everybody everything because I believed in my product. But the problem is all those people that left said, but your house is $100,000 more than the house down the street. And they could not get past the square footage price for quality. And so the downside is that's what people started to desire over and over and over again. And yeah, it's like moving into a haunted mansion. Yeah. So here's the thing. People then desired it. They wanted more square footage for cheaper price. The builders got wind of this, and therein lies the creation of the trash home builder. Instead of a track home builder, it's a trash home builder. Because all they then started doing was putting up these 3,000 square foot, 2-story houses, boxes, basically a square with a roof on it, putting it on a slab foundation, which is the worst piece of garbage in the entire world to build a house on, and putting in so-so quality stuff, meaning they would buy Home Depot cabinets or something like that, but all particle board cabinets that you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's, and they would throw granite or Corian back then because that was what everybody saw as high quality countertops. And all of a sudden people walk in the house and go, ooh, we got that new quartz countertop. Oh my goodness, it's so amazing. And then they wouldn't see the fact that everything else in the house was total trash. And they didn't get to see behind the walls. They didn't get to see that, they were splicing studs together. They were using finger jointed studs. Finger jointed studs, guys. You think that's not true? It is very true. Finger jointed, meaning 8 pieces in one stud glued together. They were using that stuff back then. And they were doing it because they could buy all the scrap from the dump and then start making studs back again by just putting a tongue and groove seam in it and joining it together with some glue. I mean, it was just crazy. The stuff, it just shake your head and go, are you kidding? But that's what they were building. And so now they're back with the same practices. Is they took away plywood from the outside of houses and they put blackboard or pink board or whatever cheap garbage they want to put on the outside, called it a structural board, and everybody was supposed to be happy with that quality of product on the house. And then they put vinyl siding on. Who in the world ever thought vinyl siding was a good product? It's not. It's total trash. And yet, 75% of your houses today are putting vinyl siding on. So, long story, but building practices will affect your business as an adjuster in a good sense, because we will stay busy with nonstop troubles that happen in these people's houses. Nonstop. I see houses that I'm going to that all they are is builder error. Sloppy contractors, bad building practices, bad contractors, inferior products, and we are seeing these houses every single day for insurance claims. Now, fantastic for me because it's job security. As long as people build this trash, we're going to be busy. We're going to be busy forever. So people are like, oh, don't you think adjusting is going to go away? And I'm like, no, it's getting more and more busier because building more trash that's breaking down in 2 to 3 years. And I'm going to houses that are 1 year old, 1 year, with building problems. Brand new houses with leaks and water issues and mold issues and things falling apart and studs that were not, sill plates that were never sealed down, never bolted down, that are shifting on them. Unbelievable building problems. Plumbing lines that are busting on toilets within the first 6 months of building the house because they're still using a defective product that keeps on failing, and they haven't swapped out and they haven't stopped using them. So hundreds of thousands of houses have these plumbing lines in them that are pieces of garbage, they're defective and they're breaking, and I'm seeing 2 or 3 of those a week. It's like it never ends. And so what I do is I go every single time I go to a house, I'll tell the insured, please change out the rest of your plumbing supply lines for braided metal supply line, because they're going to break. And then you're going to flood your whole house, and you're going to wonder why you're out of your house for a year, because your house flooded. And that's a common occurrence because of bad building practices, guys. So we as adjusters are going to keep seeing those same things. Same thing like I'm seeing leaks on a roof. And that's because the siding guy who's putting up the vinyl siding nailed his support brackets to hold his pump jacks onto a finished roof and never sealed the shingles. And so at different spots on these houses. So now you're talking about leaking inside the house. And it's all because the guy didn't put any sealant when he pulled out all his 4 nails on each bracket, and he left it. And it's on endless amount of houses that I see this same problem. All right, well, have a good day. Thanks for joining me, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for sticking around. A2, welcome. Or, yeah, A2. How to buy a house, yeah. Well, I'm not buying houses. I'm going to build my own house. That's the only way that I see that I will get a decent product, is build my own house. And yes, it will cost more. I've built 3 houses myself from the ground up, did all the trades, and I know those houses will be standing for 100 years because that's how I build them. You build it because you care about it. You build it because you love your house and you want to stay there forever. Welcome, guys. Thanks so much. Hey, Steven, welcome. All right. Yeah, that's what a man does. That's right. We should be. I think most men should be handy enough to do something in their house. Whether it's put on an addition, build a deck, whatever. Men should be handy people. You should be able to hang sheetrock. You should be able to change out the electrical in your house, fix problems, add electrical. You should be able to plumb your own toilets and, fix a kitchen sink that's leaking, or add a disposal, put in a dishwasher, anything. Guys, if you don't know how to do these things, there's something very wrong with this type of man today. We should all be learning those skills so that we can be taking care of our own house. Because why in the world would you want to pay $400 for somebody to come and switch out your dishwasher when you could watch it on a YouTube video? Yeah, it might take you 3-4 hours to do it because it's the first one you ever did, but you're saving an install charge. He's probably going to do it wrong, and he's going to hook up your wrong. Your thing's going to be leaking, and then it's going to ruin your floor, and then you're going to have an insurance claim in a couple of years because rotten floor. Because I can guarantee you the chances of that guy doing that thing right are slim to none. Because they're hiring these people that don't have any skills. And just because they got Sears or whatever stamped on their appliance world or whatever attached to their shirt, you think that they're a skilled person. Half these guys don't know 5 minutes. They probably just got hired a month ago, and they've already swapped out 7 or 8 dishwashers, probably done the first 3 or 4 completely wrong, and they're learning as they go. Guys, this is the world of today, is most people are not skilled in their jobs. They are not perfection. They're not artisans. Artisan is gone, guys. Artisans don't exist anymore. They all went out in 2008 when the stock market crashed and the home building died. All the artisans died. They left. They went and found new work. I was one of those. I was the impeccable carpenter. I was the impeccable remodeler. I was the guy who took pride in things. And I'm not doing it anymore. And so all those people are missing out on the potential of having me build them a good product because we all left the business because we went bankrupt or we went out of business because the economy crashed. But all the people that came back in this business were wannabe, people that have less than 10 years experience or more, because they were all brand new people in the business back then, and they were just trying to learn. And it was the other way around, is that the guys that were in business in 2008 all had 20 years experience as a carpenter, and or whatever trade they were in, because they were in it for life. And they learned from their father, or they learned from their uncle, or whatever. And they were artisans, guys. Artisans are people that have been in the business. It was a family business. It was passed down, you know, and those are the businesses that existed back in the 90s, okay? Those don't exist today. We barely have skilled trades anymore that actually are hiring people that have 20 years experience doing the trade. Most of those people are out on their own, or they don't exist anymore. And so when we go hire those people, they are the higher priced people because they're truly skilled, and most people won't hire them because they are looking for the cheap guy. Well, the cheap guy is somebody who has hired somebody that has less than a year's experience, you know, or maybe he's in the process of learning, and those are the people that are fixing your house. So you get what you pay for. Yeah, you might get it for $300, but who knows if it's going to be broken in another year with a loose fitting that wasn't, or it cross-threaded the fitting and it's just there temporarily until it starts leaking. I mean, who knows? I mean, there's so many errors. But anyways, as an adjuster, we're coming across that all the time. So I bring that up because this last inspection I went on, it is for a trash home builder, and everyone in the entire country knows this, that they are a trash builder, is because they build absolute trash. Everybody knows them. In fact, they this lady told me that her subdivision is 5 years old, and they have a website that they have set up for all the complaints, and her homeowners association has also set up like a Facebook page for all the complaints. And she said there's over 100 complaints in her subdivision alone for this builder's practices. And these are major, major issues. So just like this one, this lady has a foundation on a slab that has literally separated almost an inch. Okay, an inch, guys, in the middle of her living room. She's got a slab that has separated almost an inch. How does a house move an inch on a slab without doing some major, major damage to exterior walls, to seams, to potentially electrical, plumbing lines, whatever? If anything is moved an inch, then anything that's in that slab is also moving. So she talked about it. She said, I have a water leak that's in my floor. It's coming up from under the baseboard. Well, it's right where the crack is. A 1-inch crack. She's got vinyl flooring that's across it, and it's also raised. So one section is actually about 1/4 of an inch higher than the other, and it's an inch apart. An inch. Guys, that's insanity in a living space to have a slab separated an inch. Okay? A crack, I get it. I mean, slab foundations always crack, but not separations like this. This is a monster problem. Well, she says she called the builder. The builder put her through this generic complaint line. She's been calling for 3 months, whatever. Never a return call, never a return email. No one has addressed anything. They just told her to open an insurance claim. Well, guess what? It's not an insurance claim. It's structural warranty is what it is. Serious problem going on with the foundation. Yeah, you're right, Stephen. There are very few people that have pride in their work anymore. But I went through that whole story of how it happened. Is that the people wanted cheap houses, and they got it at the cost of quality. So it's sad, but that's what happens. And so it puts out a lot of really good builders out of business because no one's buying their product, or very few people are buying their product, because it's only meant for the elite. Only the people that really want quality, that say, hey, I want this house to be here for 20 years or 50 years. I want to pass it on to my kids. I'm never moving. This is where I'm going to die. Those are the clients. Well, we don't have a whole lot of those clients when we were building back then. 1% of the people buying a house wanted a house like that. And so when we're building these super nice custom houses for people, only the 1% wanted those houses. And everybody else was like, no, I want 3,000 square feet with 4 bedrooms, a bonus room, and 3.5 baths. and I want it for less than $200,000. And they got it. Back then, the average house was about $250,000, and they were getting 3,000 square feet because they were building them for $65 to $75 a square foot. And I'm telling you, it was trash, absolute trash. And I've been back to those subdivisions several times, ones that I have actually trimmed, because I used to trim in those types of houses, and they had nothing but problems. You know, the homeowners, maybe the third or fourth homeowner that's been in that house, and they're telling me all these problems they got. And I'm like, I look at it and go, yep, I know. Not telling me anything new. But what, and then most of the time, those subdivisions turn into 100% rental communities. They turn into very high crime areas because they're all rentals. And then they all start falling apart because nobody's taking care of their house. It's just really sad. Stephen did an inspection a few days ago. Triple wide mobile home. Oh yeah, lovely. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, mobile homes, that's a whole nother story. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. Crazy. Yeah, that's not a rock hit my roof, my car. And that's how I can't keep windshields in this place. I got a broken windshield already, but I got about 9 different stars on this windshield here from rocks. Truckers, you know, kick up these rocks. Crazy. Yeah, mobile homes, totally crazy. My funniest story for a mobile home was this guy who's probably 400 pounds. He told me the cause of loss was his toilet fell through the floor. So I go out to the house. It's a mobile home, particle board flooring. Sure enough, the rim of the toilet is sitting on the floor. And I asked him, I said, what happened? He said, I was just sitting on the toilet. Next thing you know, I'm sitting on the ground. And I looked, and all the particle board, all soaked with pee and all swollen up. So clearly this guy did not have very good aim. And over a course of time, that particle board wasn't able to hold that toilet up anymore with that 400-pound guy. But no coverage there, folks. But it was, I should have taken a photo. I have some of the funniest things I see sometimes. You just go, oh my goodness, are you serious? And then I'm thinking, how did he get up? You know, he's in an alcove with a toilet, and he's on the ground. He's 400 pounds. He can't roll sideways. So I'm thinking, how did you get up? Feet out, sitting on the toilet, stuck between 2 walls. Craziness. I have an adjuster question. When you have a claim of potential subrogation, when you mentioned where the nail went through the pipe, how do you know when, or how do you know, what? How do you word that? Oh, okay. Yeah, so good question. Very good. I'm glad you came back. You're right, because this is subrogation. Absolutely. So guys, for those that are here that may not have remembered the story, we had a plumber who had plumbed the house by putting the plumbing line flush with the drywall next to a stud. Okay, instead, where the plumbing line up and down has to go into the center of the stud. That's the location where it is required. And if it comes to the surface, you have to cover that whole thing with nail plates in order to protect that pipe. And there was no nail plates, and this guy obviously put the plumbing line in the wrong spot. And so what happened was, when somebody was nailing the shelving support, the upright shelving support, nailing into the stud, they hit the pipe. Now what happens with PEX is it takes about 2 to 3 years for that nail to rust through, but eventually it does, and then springs a leak and floods the house. If you're home, wonderful. If you're not home, your whole house is flooded. So this one, how you would word this in the report is you basically are going to tell exactly what you found. So you're not casting blame. So one of the things you want to be careful about is calling people names in your report, or calling them bad plumber, or irresponsible plumber, or blah 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 blah. What you do is you basically say, from what I found after discovering the leak, the plumber stated on his report there was a nail through the water line. It appears, okay, so here's the magic word for report writing. It's called "it appears" that improper installation of that plumbing line from the plumber of this builder, and I won't say their name, I put that in quotes, installed the plumbing line too close to the drywall and not installed in the proper location on the stud. It appears that when the trim carpenter installed the shelving support bracket, he nailed through the plumbing line that was located at the surface of the drywall. There was no metal plate protecting this plumbing line that was installed incorrectly. Subrogation exists against the builder for this reason. Okay, so the absolute is that subrogation exists. Okay, you can be absolute definitive upon that word, that wording, as you're saying subrogation absolutely exists because of a third party that installed the plumbing line incorrectly and too close to the surface of the drywall with no metal plate protection. It's simple. And then you can even say a statement to say the trim carpenter would not be at fault because he would have no idea that the plumbing line was installed this close to the surface of the drywall. So you can actually discredit any subrogation against the carpenter because everybody's going to say the nail caused it, so it's the carpenter's fault. No, the carpenter can't see behind the walls. So I'm always going to put in the people that are not responsible as well as the people that are responsible. Now the builder is responsible because it falls under his liability policy for potentially fault, but he's going to say, oh no, I independently hired the plumber who is supposed to also carry liability insurance. And so he's going to first be the one that's going to be charged with subrogation. He's then going to throw the plumber under the bus and say, oh no, it's the plumber's fault. And then that's how subrogation will follow the trail. But because you put in the words, the trim carpenter is not at fault because he would not been able to see where the plumbing line was. Now, let's twist the story a little bit. And let's say the plumbing line was going down the center of the stud. Okay? And yes, that plumbing line touched the surface of the drywall. And the trim guy was nailing up his horizontal trim board, and he nailed in the middle of the stud and hit the pipe. Now, whose fault is that? Type in the chat and let me know who you think the fault is there. The plumber because the water line is next to the drywall, or the trim carpenter with the nail? Type in the chat who you think is at fault in that scenario. So the plumbing line is coming down the center of the stud, the gap. Okay, you got a stud here and a stud here, and the plumbing line is coming down the middle of the opening. The trim carpenter is nailing a vertical board, and he nails in the center of that opening and hits the plumbing line. Who's at fault? The plumber or the carpenter? Type in the chat, let me know. Let me know what you guys think. Carpenter, good answer, Andres. Anybody else? Could both be at fault. Could the plumber be at fault? Could the carpenter be at fault? Anybody have any answers? Plumbing line is coming down the middle of the gap in the opening, okay? It's not next to a stud. And it's done all the time. Done all the time, plumbing lines go down the middle of the thing as they're crossing, okay? Both, okay? Could be both. But this is where you're gonna have to know building code, guys. Okay? Building code is going to protect in this situation. And the reason being is that as long as he is following the strapping rules of the plumbing line, meaning if they come back later and they look, hey, he strapped it in the center of the stud on one side, and he strapped it on the center of the stud on the other side, or it's going through one hole on the middle of the stud and going through the hole on the other side of the stud, then he is covered. He is protected because he's following building practices. Now, the carpenter is going to be the one at fault because he's not allowed to nail in between the drywall for no reason. Meaning, why would he be nailing in nothing? The whole point of the carpenter is to hit the stud. You know, you're there to nail whatever you're nailing on to hit the stud. And I've seen a lot of carpenters do this. They just gonna cross nail through the drywall to try and hold their stuff on the wall. That's a good way to get in trouble. A good way to get in trouble is shooting through the wall for no reason. And that, when we go back into subrogation, is when you're going to be able to look at. Now we got a guy, a motorbike, absolutely being stupid. Guys, I wish I could turn around and show you this. We got, yes, this is, let me show you too. It's really stupid. We got people that are acting stupid on the road, and thank goodness for a dash cam. We got a bike. We got a bike and a bike and a Mustang racing. And this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, is if you don't have a dash cam, you're not really protecting yourself from the stupidity of people out there. And there's a lot of stupidity. Anyway, so, Andre, it could be both, depending on the state that you're in as far as building codes. They could be at fault. But more than likely, they're going to pin it on the carpenter for just aimlessly nailing in the drywall. And that's going to be because there's no reason for him to be nailing in the middle of a board, in the middle of the drywall for no reason. He should be trying to hit the studs. And when I was a carpenter, we dropped the tape on the floor. Once we found one stud, we dropped the tape on the floor and went down and hit every red mark on the tape measure, because that was 16 on center. And that way we knew where the studs were. We try to find the stud first, and then we drop a tape to nail our baseboard or nail our chair rail or whatever it happened to be. We would do that. Now, the crown's different, and this is why they have metal plates on the top plates almost every time anything travels through that top plate. And that's because when you're nailing crown, you have two 2x4s up top on the upper plates. On the upper plates in construction. And when you're nailing crown, you can nail anywhere. You don't have to hit a stud because you got wood everywhere. And so carpenters know that, and so we just shoot everywhere. Doesn't matter where we shoot for putting up crown. We don't have to hit a stud. We don't have to worry about it because we're going to hit wood, and we just want that thing to stay there. So it's code, building code, every single time for anything that crosses through that double plate at the top to have a metal nail guard. So we won't be responsible for that because we can nail anywhere, and everybody knows that. And building code knows that too. So building code's going to help you get out of potentially problems and also help you decipher who's at fault. But again, we're not dealing with subrogation. We're just stating the facts of what we found when we go out there. So for instance, the reason why this is important is when I have a cause of loss Like for instance, on this one, it just says water, okay, water leak. And I have to be able to tell them where it's coming from. When I do my investigation, a complete cause of loss determination has to be determined. I can't turn in my report and just say, I have no idea where the water's coming from. That's not good enough. And guys, that will not be accepted by any desk adjuster or file reviewer when you turn your report in. You have to put in where the source of water is coming from, and it has to be in your report. Now, I use that magic word, it appears, because that also can be language that you can put in your report if you're not 100% sure. And the desk adjuster could end up requesting like a leak detection company to come out there and verify for sure where that water's coming from. But more than likely, if they've pulled open the wall, you know, we always try to tell them when we call them, you've got a water leak, have you called a plumber? You know, no, I haven't called a plumber. Please go call a plumber and get that leak fixed, because what if it breaks more or explodes and you got a lot of water that's going to be all over your house? So please call the plumber and get that fixed. Well, what's nice is that when we get there, they've got the plumber, they've got a bill, and the plumbers normally will put on their report where the water was coming from. So they'll say, oh, found a pinhole leak in the copper under the dishwasher. It was leaking for some time. Or found a nail in a plumbing pipe. Looks like the trim carpenter put his nail through the pipe. Or whatever. Looks like a long-term leak that's been leaking from outside the house. There was a hole there caused by termites. Water was leaking in every time it rained. Not covered. Okay? So that's why it's important for us to document the loss, is because it helps with coverage. We have to be able to know if there's coverage or not based on the damages and the source. You know, if we don't have a source, then we don't know if there's coverage or not. We don't know if it's long-term. Like for instance, this big crack in the foundation, got water coming up. Well, it's long-term foundation, structural, land movement, all these different things not covered under the policy. And water's coming up through that crack. I mean, it's real unfortunate for the insured, but there's no coverage there as far as the insurance company goes, because they don't cover land movement or foundation cracks. Is it possible to request a plumber to help you during an inspection? Absolutely. If they happen to come there when you are there, that's fine. I would prefer them to be there before, because number one, they're going to save the damaged the plumbing pipe for you to take a picture of it. More than likely, that's how they're taught, is they leave the damaged product with the insured, and that way you can take a photo of it. So you got a frozen pipe that's split. Well, it's really handy, because now you can take a picture of that and say, here's the cause of loss. Cause of loss was the fact that this plumbing line froze, and then when it thawed, all the water came inside the house. So same thing, like if you have a nail that's actually through a pipe or a hole in a pipe, you can say, okay, this is it. Or if you have a fitting that's cracked, you'll have that and take a photo of it. So yeah, I always try to encourage the plumber to get there first. So I tell the people, you know, that some of your mitigation companies have plumbing services with them. So if I ask them, I said, well, do you have water in your house? Is there water on the floor, the carpet, the flooring, you know, wood flooring or whatever? And if they say yes, then I tell them to go ahead and call a mitigation company and ask them if they have the ability to have a plumber come out as well. Like, do they have plumbing services that are part of their services for mitigation? And if they say yeah, then what a dream, number one, for probably the insured to get it all knocked out at one time, meaning they're going to have somebody that's going to come in, fix the leak, and also then get started on drying. That's a super convenient thing. And then the other thing is then that's going to get you a determination right away of where the water came from, because you want to be able to put that on your file. Now, if you get out there, the plumber hasn't been there, and you are trying to investigate the loss, it's going to be really difficult for you because you can't cut the drywall. You can't open up that wall and find out where the leak's coming from. So see why it's important to get that guy out there immediately, as soon as possible, and hopefully before you get out there, is so that you have a source to be able to put on your report. Otherwise, you're stuck. And honestly, it's not a good report because, number one, you don't know how much drywall they're going to have to cut out in order to investigate where the leak's from, which needs to be on your estimate. You're going to not be able to complete your report because you're not going to have a source, an absolute source of where the water's coming from. And it's just not going to be complete. You're going to end up having to go back out there, possibly after they open up the wall, and do another visit. And who wants to do that? That's 2 visits for the same thing. So when you call them on the phone, when you first introduce themselves, try to push the inspection out 2 days, 3 days, enough time for them to get a plumber or a remediation company, and say, hey, make sure you tell them that you have an appointment with your adjuster on this day, and you want to make sure that they can come before I get there. And there's nothing wrong with you demanding that, and the plumbers don't mind coming within 24 to 48 hours anyways. So it's totally fine. But yeah, you want the plumber there, finding out where the leak is, and having that wall opened up so you know how much drywall they had to take out, so you know how much to write for your estimate when you're putting it back. So that's the reason for that. Well, guys, I'm going to finish up this live. This is my second live today. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you hit the like, guys. Only 4 likes? I don't know. Think somebody found something important or exciting here. Hit the like button if you found anything interesting here. Make sure you subscribe and you hit the bell so that you will be able to be notified again of the next time that I go live. I'm trying to do a live every day so that you guys can learn from my experiences every day. There's new stuff that happens every day, and some of them are entertaining and some of them are not. Some of them are boring. And I think all of you can learn as you grow about being an adjuster just by hearing other people's experiences and how they handle the problems they run across. So we can all learn from each other. We can all get better together. So anyways, thanks so much for watching, guys. Appreciate the likes. And guys, have a great rest of the day. And we'll see you on the next one. Daniel the Adjuster, helping you become the best adjuster. Take care, guys.